"You're just a human," she said. Then I broke her spear with my bare hands. On Earth, humanity's long history had taught them to adapt, to think quickly, and to face challenges that no other species could imagine. Yet, here in the Galactic Council, on a planet orbiting a yellow star in the Janari system, those traits were considered weaknesses. The hall was enormous, built from polished metals that reflected the light in sharp angles. Aliens of every shape and size crowded the room. Some floated, some walked on multiple legs, some had skin that shimmered with colors Elias had never seen before. They whispered to each other in languages he could barely understand, but Elias didn't notice them. His eyes were on the front of the room, where Commander Sareth, the champion of the Thalorians, stood. She was everything the galaxy admired in a warrior. Tall, with thick muscles rippling beneath her silvery armor, she carried a long, ceremonial spear. The tip gleamed in the hall lights, sharp and perfect. Her eyes, glowing faintly with a violet hue, scanned the audience with confidence. When her gaze landed on Elias, she smiled, not a kind smile, but the kind that told him she believed she was about to win without trying. "You're just a human," she said, her voice echoing across the hall. It wasn't loud, but it carried a weight that made other species nod. "Fragile, weak, small, you do not belong here." Elias took a slow breath. He had heard this kind of mockery before, though never this public. He had trained for years for moments like this, though he had hoped it would never come. The humans had been invited to the council not as conquerors, but as observers, and now he found himself on the stage of what the galaxy called a species trial. The council members, floating or seated in high chairs around the hall, murmured among themselves. They were judges, scholars, and politicians of countless civilizations. To them, the trial was simple: show the humans for what they were: weak, unworthy, ordinary. Elias' hands tightened at his sides. He could feel the tension in the hall. Some species leaned forward eagerly, ready to see a human fail. Others, the more curious ones, watched with interest. They had never seen humans up close, not like this. Not in a moment meant to humiliate. Sareth stepped forward, her boots clanging on the metal floor. The spear in her hands felt alive, humming with energy that Elias could not fully see. "Show us your strength, human," she said, raising the spear in the air. "Prove you are not a complete disappointment." The audience laughed. Elias ignored them. He studied the spear, noticing its weight, its balance. He knew he could not match her in sheer strength, but strength alone was never enough. Humans had survived ice ages, volcanoes, diseases, wars, and hunger, not by being stronger than others, but by being smarter, faster in thought, and more persistent. He stepped forward. His heart pounded in his chest, not with fear, but with focus. He knew every movement Sareth made would be precise, controlled, and deadly if he miscalculated. He had seconds to react. Every human instinct, sharpened by thousands of years of survival, was ready. Sareth lunged. The spear came at him like a flash of light. Elias moved, but not away. Instead, he shifted his body, feeling the spear's momentum and the energy behind it. Humans were small, yes, but they had a surprising ability to adapt in a moment. In that instant, Elias grabbed the spear with both hands. The hall gasped. No human had ever done that before, not in recorded history, not in any story or legend. Aliens whispered among themselves, some in disbelief, some in concern. Sareth's eyes widened. She had expected him to dodge, to flinch, to fail. She had not expected resistance. And now she realized her own mistake. The spear was not light. It was designed to break bones, not just intimidate. Yet here was Elias, holding it firm, his muscles straining, his mind calm. "Interesting," he said, his voice steady, "but not enough." Then in one movement that seemed impossible, he twisted the spear, applying his body weight and leverage, using the exact point of balance Sareth had taught him without knowing it. The spear snapped in the middle with a clean, sharp crack. Silence. Absolute silence. No one moved. The audience could not believe what they had seen. Sareth's mouth opened, then closed again. She stared at the broken weapon, then at Elias. Her confident posture faltered for the first time. She had underestimated the human capacity for problem-solving, for creativity, for persistence. The council members leaned forward. Some scribbled notes, some whispered rapidly to each other. The message was clear. The human had survived the first test, and not only survived, he had done the impossible. Elias held the broken spear, feeling the energy hum in his hands. He didn't feel proud. He felt focused. This was only the beginning. The galaxy had underestimated humans, and he was here to show why they should never do it again. Sareth stepped back, her eyes narrowing. She did not smile anymore. She had underestimated him, and that mistake would cost her more than pride. "You are strong for a human," she said, trying to mask her surprise. But Elias noticed the tremor in her voice, the small signs of doubt. The murmurs in the audience grew louder. Some aliens looked impressed, others alarmed. Across the hall, young warriors from various species whispered among themselves. If a human could break a Thalorian spear with bare hands, what else could they do? Elias put the broken spear down carefully. He did not raise his voice or make a show of his strength. Humans were not known for arrogance. They were known for persistence, ingenuity, and courage. Those traits, he knew, would speak louder than any gesture. The council members regained some control and addressed the hall. "Let this be a lesson," one said, "that humans may not be as weak as we believed, but one act does not define a species. The trial continues." Elias nodded, silently acknowledging the challenge ahead. The trials would test more than strength. They would test intellect, endurance, and adaptability. And he was ready. Outside the hall, the twin suns of the Gennari system shone brightly. From above, the planet's surface looked calm, serene. But within the metallic walls of the council chamber, tension hung thick like storm clouds. Humanity had just taken its first step in a galaxy that had long ignored it. One broken spear had begun to change everything. Elias looked around, observing the other species closely. He noticed subtle shifts in posture, the quick exchange of glances, and the spark of curiosity that had appeared in some. Humans were small, yes. Fragile, yes. But underestimated, that was their greatest advantage. Every species here had a reputation, a predictable behavior, a set of expectations. Humans had none of that. They adapted, improvised, and endured, and that made them dangerous in ways the galaxy had never considered. The hall began to buzz again as the next stage of the trial was announced. Elias knew that what had just happened would not be enough. He had broken a spear, yes, but the galaxy would now try to crush him to see if that first act was luck. He stepped forward, keeping his mind calm, remembering every lesson Earth had taught him. When others relied on power alone, humans relied on ingenuity. When others hesitated, humans acted. And when others saw impossibility, humans saw opportunity. Elias straightened his back and faced Sareth. She tightened her grip on another weapon, clearly planning her next move. But Elias was no longer just a human in her eyes. He was a challenge, a question she could not answer easily. The murmurs in the hall grew louder. Aliens who had laughed moments ago were now whispering to each other in low tones. The word was spreading. The human might not be weak after all. Elias took a slow, deep breath and prepared himself for what was coming. The next challenge would be harder. The next obstacle would test more than physical strength. But for the first time in the galaxy's history, humans were no longer seen as just small, weak, fragile creatures. They were seen as unpredictable, capable, and resilient. And that was exactly what humanity needed them to be. The hall had barely recovered from the first act when Elias Ward stood quietly, waiting. The broken Thalorian spear lay at his feet like a silent warning. The audience had been shocked into silence, but that silence would not last. Across the hall, Commander Sareth's eyes burned with a mixture of disbelief and irritation. She had expected a small, weak human to flinch, to fail, to prove every prejudice the galaxy held about humanity. Instead, he had done something no human, or any species, had ever done before. "Interesting," she said again, this time with a harder edge. "But one act does not define a species. It is only luck." Elias' gaze did not waver. Luck had nothing to do with it. Humans had survived and thrived because they had learned to turn danger into opportunity, weakness into strength, and uncertainty into strategy. But he knew that words alone would not convince the audience or his challenger. He had to show it. The council members murmured among themselves, their digital records capturing every second. Hollow screens flashed across the walls, recording Elias' movements for all galaxies to see. The audience leaned forward. Some whispered questions. Some species, like the Ulcari, tilted their multiple heads, analyzing every muscle in his body. They wanted to understand how a human could achieve the impossible. Sareth stepped closer, raising her second spear. Unlike the first, this one was reinforced with Thalorian energy alloys designed to withstand any brute force. Its tip hummed with lethal power, crackling softly. "Show me, human," she said. Her voice was sharper now, a challenge. "Prove you are not just a lucky mistake." Elias stepped forward calmly. He did not fear the spear nor the alien holding it. He focused, letting every instinct guide him. Humans had always faced impossible odds and had learned to act without hesitation. He studied the angle, the weight, the energy, and the rhythm of Sareth's movements. The first strike came fast. The spear moved like lightning, aimed directly at his chest. Many species would have flinched, backed away, or tried to block and failed. Elias did none of those. He shifted his body, letting the momentum carry him past the weapon. He grabbed it just below the energy tip, where the Thalorian alloy was strongest. The audience gasped again. No human had ever touched a weapon like that, let alone held it firmly. Even Sareth's confidence wavered. She had expected resistance, but not control. Elias twisted the spear with precision, using physics he had learned from engineering experiments on Earth. His muscles burned, his grip was tight, but he focused on the principle of leverage. With a sharp, clean motion, the spear bent and snapped at its midpoint. A streak of sparks flew as the energy core fractured and the hall erupted into chaos. Some species screamed in shock. Others cheered softly, as if witnessing something sacred. Sareth's eyes widened, her face paling slightly beneath the silvery glow of her skin. The champion of the Thalorians had been defeated in front of everyone, not by sheer strength, but by human ingenuity. The council president, a massive creature with 4 eyes and skin like molten stone, banged its staff on the floor to restore order. "Enough," it boomed. "Human strength or trickery, we will judge this fairly. Continue with caution." Elias nodded, lowering the broken spear. He did not feel pride, nor did he gloat. Humans had never needed to display arrogance. The strength of a species came not from boasting, but from results. He had shown the galaxy a glimpse of human potential, and it was enough to change how many species thought about humans. Sareth stepped back, her chest rising and falling quickly. She had underestimated him, and the realization burned like fire in her mind. She had faced many opponents in her life, but never someone who could turn her weapon against her so easily. The humility she felt was foreign, almost uncomfortable. Yet she masked it behind a stern glare, unwilling to admit her fear publicly. The council recorded everything, and the hollow screens showed every angle of the broken spear. Across the galaxy, in worlds far from the Janari system, species watched in disbelief. The humans, long dismissed as weak, had done the unthinkable. One of the council members, a species known for its intellect more than its strength, leaned forward. "Explain, human," it said. Its voice was calm but demanding. "How did you manage this? We have analyzed Thalorian weaponry for centuries. No one should have been able to break it with bare hands." Elias took a deep breath. "It is not just strength," he said. "It is understanding. We study the forces at work. We adapt. We act when others hesitate. Humans survive not because we are the strongest, but because we can see solutions others cannot." There was a pause. The hall was silent, as if his words carried weight heavier than any weapon. Some species whispered among themselves, trying to digest what he had said. Others looked at Sareth, wondering if she could respond. Sareth took a step forward, her voice lower now, more deliberate. "Perhaps humans are different," she admitted, though her pride prevented her from saying more. "But different is not enough. You will face more challenges. If your species cannot endure, then your moment here will end." Elias met her gaze evenly. "We do not fear challenges," he said. "We meet them." The audience stirred again, excitement building. They could feel the tension, the unpredictability. Something was changing. The galaxy had always measured power in strength and numbers. Now it was learning that adaptability and determination could be just as dangerous. The next challenge was announced, the trial of skill and mind. Unlike the first test, which relied on physical confrontation, this trial would test intellect, strategy, and ingenuity. Humans had always excelled in these areas. Yet Elias knew it would not be simple. Every species present had centuries of experience and technology, and many of them had never faced a human competitor. He walked to the center of the arena, observing the devices arranged for the trial. There were puzzles that required logic, machines that required precision, and obstacles that required clever solutions. To the untrained eye, the trial seemed straightforward. To Elias, every element was a potential trap. Many species had fallen here before, not from lack of skill, but from overconfidence and rigidity. Elias began the trial. His hands moved quickly, his mind calculating every angle. He used principles of balance, energy, and leverage, applying them in ways that the other species had never considered. A puzzle meant to trap participants with precise timing was solved not by speed, but by rhythm. A mechanical obstacle that had defeated dozens was disarmed by intuition and careful observation. The audience watched in awe. Even Sareth, standing to the side, could not hide her amazement. Elias was small, yes, and human, yes, but the way he solved each challenge revealed a different kind of strength, one that could not be measured by muscle alone. By the time he finished, the arena was quiet once more. All of the obstacles had been completed with efficiency and cleverness. The council members exchanged glances. Some looked pleased, others worried. One thing was certain: humans were no longer seen as weak. Elias looked at Sareth. She lowered her gaze briefly, then lifted it again. There was respect there now, unspoken but undeniable. He had not needed to boast, to fight unfairly, or to rely on luck. He had simply acted as a human should, with intelligence, adaptability, and persistence. Across the galaxy, recordings of the trial were being analyzed and discussed. Scholars debated, warriors reconsidered strategy, and leaders questioned long-held beliefs. Humanity had always survived against overwhelming odds, but now the universe could see it. Humans were not weak, fragile, or unworthy. They were dangerous in ways no one had predicted. Elias stepped down from the arena, his heart steady. He had proven something crucial: strength was not the only measure of power. Humans had endurance, ingenuity, and the ability to adapt. Those traits had allowed them to survive on a small, fragile planet for millennia, and they would allow humans to thrive anywhere in the galaxy. The next challenge awaited, but Elias did not fear it. He had broken a spear with his bare hands. He had outsmarted countless species in one trial, and he had shown the galaxy a truth it could no longer ignore. Humans were capable of greatness, and the universe had yet to see their full potential. As he walked away, he heard whispers from the audience. Some were curious, some were cautious, some were even fearful. Elias smiled slightly. That was the effect he wanted. Humans did not need to dominate through violence or intimidation. They dominated through possibility, through the idea that no matter the odds, they would find a way. And the galaxy, for the first time, had to take them seriously. The hall had finally settled after Elias' display of human skill and ingenuity, but the energy in the room had changed. Where there had once been laughter, mockery, and the smug confidence of the galaxy's most powerful species, there was now unease. Whispers ran through the audience like electricity, and many species shifted in their seats, uncertain how to react. Commander Sareth stood with her hands resting on the remnants of her broken spear, her violet eyes following Elias closely. The pride and arrogance she had carried moments before had shifted into caution. She had faced countless opponents over her lifetime, each one predictable in its strength, speed, or tactics. Elias, however, had defied all expectations. The council president, its massive stone-like form looming over the arena, banged its staff again to restore order. "Let the next phase begin," it announced. "We will see whether this human is merely lucky or truly capable of adaptation." Elias stepped forward, his movements calm and deliberate. He did not feel fear. Humans had survived environmental disasters, natural predators, and internal conflicts for millennia by learning, adapting, and persisting. That survival instinct, the relentless refusal to accept defeat, was a part of him now, as natural as breathing. The council signaled the next challenge. Unlike the previous tests, this one was not focused solely on physical strength or ingenuity. Instead, it was a combination of intelligence, strategy, and endurance. Participants would face complex puzzles, coordination tasks, and mental challenges designed to overwhelm their senses. Many species had failed here before, not because they lacked intelligence, but because they had underestimated the unpredictability of the trials. Elias observed the setup carefully. Machines hummed, holographic puzzles floated in the air, and intricate mechanisms waited to test every skill he possessed. Other species approached the obstacles with confidence, their experience in solving similar challenges giving them an edge, or so they believed. Sareth approached Elias, her voice low but audible. "You think your species is clever, human, but cleverness will not save you now." Elias met her gaze steadily. "We do not rely on cleverness alone," he said. "We rely on observation, adaptation, and persistence. That has always been enough for us." Sareth's eyes narrowed. For the first time, she hesitated. Elias' calm certainty unnerved her more than any physical threat could. She had faced countless opponents who relied on sheer power, but none who could confront a challenge with such patience and focus. The trial began. Aliens rushed forward, eager to complete the puzzles and obstacles first. Many faltered immediately. One species, known for its sharp reflexes and multiple limbs, attempted to solve a mechanical puzzle by force, snapping its delicate components. Another, a species renowned for its speed and intellect, miscalculated timing and triggered a trap that nearly ejected it from the arena. Elias moved differently. He observed first, understanding the patterns and timing before acting. When a puzzle required precision, he did not rush. He analyzed, tested, and adjusted. When an obstacle demanded coordination, he adapted his movements, using balance and leverage to maneuver efficiently. The audience watched in disbelief. Humans were small, unassuming, and often underestimated, yet Elias' performance was flawless. Every step, every decision, demonstrated the unique combination of intellect and adaptability that humans possessed. Sareth's hands tightened on her weapon. She had expected the human to fail under pressure, to stumble when confronted with complexity. Instead, he excelled where others struggled. The realization gnawed at her pride. She had thought humans were fragile, weak, and predictable. Now she understood that the galaxy had been blind to their potential. Elias reached a particularly complex puzzle, a set of holographic patterns that required both timing and logic to complete. Many species had attempted it and failed, often multiple times. Elias paused, studying the puzzle carefully. He noticed patterns in the sequence, subtle rhythms that the others had overlooked. With a steady hand, he manipulated the holograms, aligning the sequences precisely. Lights flashed, mechanisms clicked into place, and the puzzle completed itself. A collective gasp echoed through the hall. For the first time, some species realized that human problem-solving was not only different but superior in its ability to see solutions others could not. Whispers spread through the audience. "How is he doing that?" one alien asked. "No species has ever completed that puzzle in record time." Elias continued through the trial. Each obstacle revealed the strengths of his species: observation, adaptability, patience, and the refusal to give up. When an alien competitor struggled with a timing-based obstacle, he waited, studied, and acted precisely. When a puzzle required unconventional thinking, he ignored the obvious solution and found a creative approach. Sareth's expression darkened. For the first time, her laughter had been replaced by concern. She realized that Elias' abilities were not just a fluke. They were representative of an entire species. If humans were like him, the galaxy's long-held assumptions were wrong. Every species had underestimated humanity, and that underestimation could no longer hold. By the time Elias reached the final challenge, the audience had grown silent. The trials that had taken weeks for others had been completed by him in hours, yet he did not pause to celebrate. Humans did not rely on emotion to guide them in challenges. They relied on logic, determination, and careful observation. The final obstacle was a combination of physical coordination and mental calculation, a moving platform over a deep chasm, requiring timing, balance, and problem-solving to cross safely. Many had fallen before, their pride leading them to rush instead of think. Elias approached the platform deliberately, observing the movement pattern. He adjusted his weight, timing his steps with precision. When a piece of the platform shifted unexpectedly, he adapted immediately, finding balance and continuing forward. He reached the other side without hesitation. A wave of silence swept through the hall, followed by murmurs of awe. For the first time, some species began to see humans not as fragile, small, or weak, but as resilient, clever, and dangerous in ways they could not predict. The council president rose from its chair. Its voice rumbled through the hall. "Human, your performance has exceeded expectation. Your species shows adaptability, intelligence, and endurance previously thought impossible." Elias nodded. He did not feel pride. He felt the quiet satisfaction of a species showing its true potential. He had faced every challenge calmly, efficiently, and without hesitation, proving that human capability was not limited to physical strength alone. Sareth stepped forward, her voice measured. "You are impressive, human, but impressiveness alone does not change reality. The galaxy will continue to test you to push your species to its limits. Do not assume that this moment changes everything." Elias met her gaze steadily. "We do not assume," he said. "We respond and we endure." The audience erupted in whispers. Across the hall, young warriors and scholars took notes, recording every movement and decision. Some species shifted uncomfortably in their seats, realizing that their assumptions about humans had been flawed. For centuries, humans had been dismissed as weak, insignificant, and unworthy. Now those assumptions were being challenged, and the consequences were only beginning to unfold. Sareth turned away briefly, hiding a flicker of respect. She had underestimated the human species, and she knew it. Elia's performance had not relied on tricks or shortcuts. It had relied on the qualities that had allowed humanity to survive on a fragile, unpredictable planet. Observation, adaptation, creativity, patience, and persistence, qualities she had never considered truly threatening, were what had allowed him to surpass every expectation. Elias stepped down from the final obstacle, his movements calm and deliberate. The council president spoke again. The galaxy will need to reconsider its perception of humanity. This species demonstrates resilience and adaptability unmatched by many others. The audience remained quiet, digesting what they had witnessed. Some species whispered to each other in alarm, others nodded thoughtfully. A few glanced at Sareth, uncertain how she would respond to the new reality. Elias walked away from the arena, his heart steady. Humans had always survived against incredible odds, and now the galaxy could see why. They were not the strongest or the fastest, but they were capable of enduring, adapting, and finding solutions when others could not. That was their power, their greatest advantage. Across the galaxy, recordings of the trial spread quickly. Scholars debated, strategists reconsidered, and leaders questioned long-held assumptions. Humans were no longer simply a species to be dismissed. They were capable of surprising, challenging, and even redefining the expectations of the galaxy. Elias' eyes met Sareth's one last time. She did not smile, nor did she scowl. There was only recognition, a silent acknowledgement that humans were unlike any other species she had faced. The trials were far from over, but humanity's true nature had begun to show. Where the galaxy had expected weakness, it found potential. Where it had expected failure, it found ingenuity, and where it had expected submission, it found resilience. Elias continued walking through the hall, his presence calm but commanding. The galaxy had begun to notice humanity, and it could no longer ignore the quiet, unassuming strength of the human spirit. The council hall buzzed with tension once more. After Elias Ward's remarkable display of intelligence, strategy, and adaptability, the galaxy had begun to shift its perception of humans. Whispers ran through the audience like ripples on water, but not all of them were praise. Some species felt fear, others curiosity, and a few simply disbelief. Commander Sareth's eyes followed Elias closely. Her pride had been shaken, and now a hint of caution shadowed her usual confidence. For the first time, she questioned whether her species had underestimated humans for far too long. Yet she remained composed. A Thalorian never admitted weakness openly. The council president, a massive stone-skinned creature whose voice could shake the hall, banged its staff to regain attention. "The final phase begins," it announced. "This trial is the ultimate test. Competitors will face multiple challenges simultaneously, requiring strength, intelligence, endurance, and teamwork. The galaxy will witness whether humanity is as capable as it claims to be, or if it is only a temporary anomaly." Elias stepped forward without hesitation. His calm presence drew attention immediately. Humans had survived unimaginable dangers on Earth, and he carried that confidence quietly but firmly. He had proven the first trials were not luck. Now the real challenge awaited. The arena shifted. Platforms rose, holographic puzzles floated in the air, and devices whirred with motion. Simulated terrain changed constantly. Walls rose, traps appeared, and obstacles rearranged themselves every few seconds. The challenge was designed to overwhelm every competitor. Many species had failed before, succumbing to stress, miscalculation, or overconfidence. Elias took a deep breath. He observed the environment, analyzing patterns and evaluating risks. Unlike most species, he did not panic or rush. Humans had always survived by thinking calmly under pressure, finding solutions where others saw chaos. Sareth approached, her violet eyes sharp. "You are strong, human," she said quietly, "but strength alone will not save you here. You will fail if you do not adapt to every change." Elias nodded. "Adaptation is what humans do best," he replied. We survive by understanding and adjusting, not by assuming the rules are fixed. The trial began. Competing species dashed forward, trying to complete challenges as quickly as possible. Many relied on instinct or brute force, rushing through without observation. Others attempted complex calculations but failed to adjust to the shifting arena. Elias moved deliberately. He observed the first obstacle, a shifting platform over a simulated chasm. The platform required both precision and timing. While other competitors rushed and stumbled, Elias paused, studying the rhythm, and moved carefully. He maintained balance and crossed safely, while others fell or scrambled to regain footing. The next challenge was a puzzle combining logic and coordination. Multiple elements had to be aligned in a precise sequence, while shifting obstacles tried to disrupt the process. Aliens with multiple arms attempted to force the puzzle into place, breaking components and setting themselves back. Humans had no mechanical advantage, but Elias used observation and methodical planning to solve it step by step. Around the arena, spectators whispered and murmured. "He is different," one alien said. "No species has completed so many obstacles without error." "Humans are unpredictable," another replied. "We cannot anticipate their methods." Sareth's eyes narrowed. She had seen competitors fail under pressure before, but Elias was navigating each challenge with precision, foresight, and calm determination. She realized that human survival was not a product of muscle or instinct alone. It was their capacity to think, adapt, and persist in ways others could not. The arena shifted again. A sudden gust of simulated wind and energy barriers forced competitors to improvise. Many stumbled, losing valuable time. Elias paused just long enough to assess the patterns, then acted with careful precision, moving through the obstacles efficiently. One challenge required competitors to carry energy cores and place them in moving slots. Misalignment could trigger a setback, and several species struggled to maintain coordination under pressure. Elias observed the timing of the platforms and the speed of the slots. Using his understanding of weight distribution and movement, he carried each core flawlessly, never dropping or misplacing a single one. The audience began to lean forward in disbelief. Humans, small and often underestimated, were excelling in a challenge designed to test multiple species, limits simultaneously. Sareth's expression darkened. She had always relied on strength, speed, and skill to dominate. Here, she was forced to recognize that humans possessed a different kind of power, one that could not be countered by weapons or numbers alone. The final obstacle combined strategy, endurance, and mental calculation. Competitors had to traverse a labyrinth filled with energy traps while solving puzzles embedded in the walls. Many species faltered immediately, failing to coordinate movement and thought under pressure. Elias observed the labyrinth carefully. He noted patterns in the energy traps, identifying safe passages and timing sequences. He approached the first puzzle on the wall, aligning symbols in a sequence based on observation and logical deduction. The wall responded, shifting to reveal a hidden path. Other species struggled to keep up, trapped by indecision, overconfidence, or lack of coordination. Elias moved steadily, balancing speed and accuracy. Every obstacle he faced, he adapted to, finding solutions that seemed almost impossible to others. By the time he reached the labyrinth's exit, the hall erupted. He had completed the final challenge without hesitation or error. Competitors who had rushed ahead were scattered, delayed, or exhausted. The council president's eyes widened. "This human has surpassed expectation. It is clear that your species possesses qualities unmatched by many others. Adaptability, endurance, ingenuity, all combined in ways we did not foresee." Elias stepped forward, calm but focused. He had proven something crucial. Humans could not be measured by traditional standards of strength or speed alone. They excelled in the unpredictable, the complex, and the dangerous. Sareth approached, her stance more cautious than before. "You are impressive," she admitted, her voice low. "I have underestimated your species, but impressiveness alone does not guarantee survival. The galaxy will continue to test you. Your species will face challenges no one else could imagine." Elias met her gaze steadily. "We are ready," he said. "Humans survive because we adapt, we endure, and we learn." The council hall was quiet for a moment, absorbing the weight of his words. Then, slowly, whispers began to spread. Scholars, strategists, and leaders across the galaxy began to reconsider long-held beliefs. Humans had been dismissed as weak, fragile, and insignificant. Now their potential was impossible to ignore. Sareth's eyes flickered with something new: respect. She had faced countless opponents and challenges, yet none had revealed the depth of human capability the way Elia's had. She knew the galaxy had misjudged humans, and she wondered how many other assumptions were equally flawed. Elias walked away from the labyrinth, his steps calm and measured. The trials had not been easy, but they had shown the universe something important. Humans could not be predicted, dismissed, or underestimated. Their strength lay not only in muscle or weaponry, but in their mind, their persistence, and their ability to adapt under pressure. Across the galaxy, news of the trials spread quickly. Scholars debated the implications, strategists adjusted their plans, and leaders questioned assumptions that had persisted for centuries. Humans had survived impossible tests on their home planet, and now they had demonstrated that their survival instincts extended into the vast and unpredictable galaxy. Sareth watched him leave, her mind racing. She had believed humans to be small, weak, and limited. Now she understood that their greatest strength lay in what she had ignored: adaptability, intelligence, endurance, and courage. The galaxy had long assumed that power came from size, strength, or technology. Elias had proven that these assumptions were incomplete. Elias did not celebrate. Humans had never relied on celebration to measure success. They measured it by survival, learning, and progress. And now, humanity had shown the galaxy a truth that could not be ignored. The council president's voice echoed through the hall. Let it be recorded, this species demonstrates resilience and adaptability unmatched by most others. Their performance today has forced the galaxy to reconsider long-held assumptions. Humanity is no longer a minor species to be dismissed. Elia's calm gaze swept across the hall. He had proven that humans were not weak. He had shown that they could think, adapt, and endure in ways no other species could anticipate. The trials had been difficult, but humanity had passed them with precision, intelligence, and courage. As the hall emptied, whispers followed him. Some were admiring, some cautious, some fearful. Across the galaxy, the seeds of recognition had been planted. Humanity was no longer a species to be underestimated. They were small, yes, but capable; fragile, yes, but adaptable. Weak no longer, Elias walked toward the council's exit, his mind already preparing for what came next. The galaxy had begun to see humans differently. The next challenges would not be easier, but he knew that humanity had the qualities to survive, to adapt, and to rise. And for the first time, the galaxy began to understand. Humans were not just another species. They were a force that could change everything. The air in the council hall was thick with anticipation. After days of trials, challenges, and displays of intelligence, endurance, and adaptability, the galaxy had begun to view humans differently. The whispers that had once mocked Elia's ward were now filled with curiosity, awe, and cautious respect. Even Commander Sareth, the Thalorian champion who had once dismissed him as weak, walked with a subtle caution in her steps. She no longer saw Elias as just a human. She saw someone, and by extension a species, that could challenge long-held assumptions and potentially disrupt centuries of galactic hierarchy. The council president, its stone-like skin reflecting the hall lights, banged its staff to restore order. "Humanity has completed the trials," it announced, its voice resonating like thunder. "Your performance has forced us to reconsider the very nature of power in the galaxy. You have demonstrated intelligence, adaptability, endurance, and courage beyond what was believed possible for a species so small and fragile." Elias stood calmly, his eyes scanning the hall. He did not raise his voice, nor did he flaunt his abilities. Humanity had never relied on pride to prove its worth. Their strength had always come from action, persistence, and the ability to survive against odds that would overwhelm most species. Sareth stepped forward, her violet eyes locking onto his. "I underestimated your species," she admitted. "I thought humans were weak, small, fragile, but your performance has shown me that I was wrong. Perhaps the galaxy has been wrong as well." Elias nodded, acknowledging her words. "Humans survive because we learn, adapt, and endure. Strength alone does not define a species. We measure ourselves by our ability to overcome challenges and find solutions others cannot see." The audience shifted, murmuring in agreement or disbelief. Some species exchanged glances, reevaluating their assumptions. For centuries, the galaxy had measured power by size, weaponry, and sheer force. Now, humans had demonstrated that survival, intelligence, and adaptability were equally, if not more, important. The council president raised its staff once more. Let it be recorded, humanity is hereby recognized as a high-resilience, high-adaptability species. Their accomplishments during these trials have proven that they cannot be dismissed, underestimated, or ignored. Their potential must be acknowledged, and their place in the galaxy respected. The words echoed through the hall, sending ripples across the audience. Aliens who had once sneered or whispered mockery now watched with a mixture of respect and caution. The humans had not conquered through violence or intimidation. They had conquered through intelligence, persistence, and the quiet power of action. Elia's gaze fell on Sareth again. She had been one of the galaxy's strongest warriors, yet even she had struggled to anticipate his abilities. The realization was clear. Humanity's strength did not rely on muscle or weaponry alone. It was in their mind, their ingenuity, and their refusal to yield under pressure. Sareth nodded slowly, almost imperceptibly. "You have changed my perspective," she admitted quietly. "Humans are not what I thought. Perhaps we have underestimated the value of adaptability, intelligence, and courage in ways that are dangerous to ignore." Elias allowed a small, respectful smile. "We do not seek to dominate through fear. We seek to survive, to learn, and to grow. That has always been humanity's way." Across the hall, younger warriors and scholars from countless species whispered to each other. Some noted Elias' strategies, studying his approach for future application. Others questioned their own assumptions, realizing that dismissing a species based on size, appearance, or initial strength could be a costly mistake. Humanity had become a lesson for the galaxy. Never underestimate the underestimated. The broken spear from the first trial was carefully lifted by council attendants and placed in a display case. It was no longer a symbol of humiliation, as Sareth had intended. It had become a symbol of potential, resilience, and human ingenuity. Even Sareth's expression softened as she watched it, a quiet recognition of the power humans could achieve. The council president's voice filled the hall again. "Let all species remember this day. The trials have shown that power is not measured solely by size, weapons, or aggression. Adaptability, intelligence, courage, and endurance are qualities that can redefine the balance of the galaxy. Humanity has displayed these qualities in full." Elias took a step back, observing the reactions of the audience. He had completed the trials, yet he knew that the journey of humanity in the galaxy was just beginning. Recognition was important, but the real challenge was to continue proving that their survival skills, ingenuity, and adaptability could thrive in an ever-changing universe. Outside the council hall, the twin suns of the Gennari system shone brightly, their light reflecting off the polished metallic surface of the building. The galaxy beyond was vast, filled with wonders, dangers, and opportunities. Humanity had only just begun to explore it, but their performance had already reshaped perceptions. Aliens who had dismissed humans as fragile and unremarkable now considered the possibilities that these small, adaptable beings represented. Elias walked slowly through the hall, taking in the faces of the audience. Some looked in awe, others in fear, and a few in reluctant respect. Every gaze told the same story. Humans were no longer to be underestimated. Humanity had shown the galaxy that survival, intellect, and adaptability were as powerful as brute strength. Sareth approached him, her expression thoughtful. "You have done more than survive, human," she said softly. "You have made the galaxy reconsider what it believes about strength, power, and potential. That is no small achievement." Elias nodded. "We do not seek to prove ourselves through dominance," he said. "We show what is possible when a species refuses to accept limitations. That is the way humans survive." For the first time, Sareth smiled faintly, not out of victory but out of acknowledgement. She had faced a species that defied every expectation, and she recognized the lessons they offered. "Then the galaxy will need to be careful," she said. "Humans may be small, but they are capable of far more than anyone imagined." Across the hall, recordings of the trials were being analyzed and broadcast to distant planets. Leaders, scholars, and strategists debated what they had seen. The humans had completed challenges that had defeated other species for generations. They had adapted to unpredictable conditions, solved puzzles others had deemed impossible, and endured pressures that would have broken many. The galaxy began to understand that humanity's strength was not immediately obvious. It was quiet, patient, and persistent. It was a strength built on observation, adaptability, and the refusal to surrender to challenges. Where others relied on predictable methods, humans created new solutions. Where others gave up under pressure, humans endured. Where others saw obstacles, humans saw opportunities. Elias left the hall, feeling neither triumph nor arrogance. Humanity's recognition was only the beginning. The universe was vast, and the challenges ahead were countless. But he knew one thing with certainty: humans would face them, adapt, and endure. That was the essence of their species, the quiet force that no one could ignore. In the days following the trials, council reports and messages flooded across the galaxy. Many species began reassessing humanity's potential in diplomacy, exploration, and defense. Where humans had once been dismissed as fragile and weak, they were now considered adaptable, clever, and capable of rising to unexpected challenges. The galaxy had been reminded that assumptions based on appearances or size were dangerous, and that survival depended on more than brute strength. Sareth returned to her home planet, carrying with her the lesson she had learned. The galaxy's greatest warriors, she realized, could be outmatched not by size or weaponry but by intelligence, patience, and adaptability. Humans had not destroyed her. They had not attacked her unfairly. Yet they had demonstrated a power that few had anticipated, a power built on the ability to think, learn, and endure. Elias, meanwhile, returned to the human delegation. He knew that the trials had opened doors for humanity. They had earned respect, yes, but more importantly, they had changed how the galaxy perceived them. Humans would no longer be dismissed as small or weak. Their potential was now recognized, and the world was ready to witness what they could accomplish next. As the stars glimmered above the Janari system, Elias looked toward the distant galaxies. He knew the journey ahead would be filled with new trials, challenges, and discoveries. But humans had proven that no obstacle was insurmountable when intelligence, endurance, and adaptability were combined. The universe had underestimated them, and they would not make the same mistake again. The broken spear, now preserved in the council hall, served as a symbol. Not of defeat nor humiliation, but of the moment the galaxy had begun to recognize human potential. A species once dismissed as fragile and small had proven that survival, ingenuity, and persistence were forms of power just as formidable as strength and weaponry. Elias turned away from the display, stepping into the future with calm determination. The galaxy had seen what humans could do when faced with impossible odds. And as the suns of the Janari system dipped below the horizon, casting the council hall in soft twilight, one truth was clear. Humanity had begun to redefine power, and the universe would never forget it. Humans were small, yes, but they were capable, adaptable, and resilient. They were not weak, and they were ready to change the galaxy, one challenge, one solution, one step at a time.